What's going on, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of California Underground. I am very excited about this episode. This is an episode we've been trying to get going for several weeks, but here we are, just in the nick of time for primaries. Very pertinent and very relevant now that primaries are coming up in
We are just in the
almost
nick
a
of
week.
time
So,
for.
oh, now we got an echo going on. And yeah, I think this is an important time that you should be researching your candidates, not just because they have an R or a D next to their name, and realizing, are they doing it for the right reasons? Are there red flags? I'm sure if anybody's tuned in and followed any of us, you know that we do love to expose candidates and we do like to do deep dives. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my fellow content predators, uh, Corinne Tatum and Camille Williams. How are you guys doing today?
Hi guys, good.
Good. Thanks for having us on.
So
Can we?
I'll
Can I
jump
call
right
you a
in.
team? Are we a team? Or are we just friends?
Yeah, we're the content predators team that we named ourselves after being called content predators for digging up somebody's past and all their stuff. But let's get right into it. I guess whoever wants to jump in first, how did you get started researching candidates? What made you want to kind of like go down this path? Corinne says she wants to jump in first
Yeah,
and
I'll go
explain,
first.
when did she start doing this?
So for me, it started in 2020. I'm not going to assume everybody knows who I am, but I'm married to a pretty big conservative, like influencer. I don't know if that's the term. So Joe Collins actually, who was running for Congress, came out and made a video about my husband and Candace Owens, saying they needed to, shut their mouths and they were don't know what they're talking about and just saying some nasty things. And so somebody actually sent me a link to an article about what a scammy person Joe Collins was. And so the article talked all about, his shady FEC, his shady spending that was in his FEC report and other things. And I was shocked, like, oh my gosh, someone running, as a Republican is not a good person. And so I didn't even know a lot of the stuff was available to the public and so readily available. And so then I just went on a crazy, obsessive digging through FEC reports and saw that he had spent, more money on five-star hotels and steak dinners at five-star restaurants than he spent on any outreach in his own district. And so it was, we'll touch on it later on how you can spot red flags and these things. But since then, I've just been a kind of obsessive about telling people to look at FEC reports of congressional or of federal candidates, campaigns, and just, that people are not who they say they are.
Awesome. Yeah, Joe Collins is definitely one of those candidates, and we can talk about him in a little bit because he's got a new district he's running for, and we can talk about a big red flag in his district. Camille, when did you join the party of
Very
researching?
late. I am very late to this party. A little over a year ago, I actually started my political research. Now, I've always been political. I've always been a researcher. Like, I'm the friend that you come to when you want to find bad stuff on someone or anything on someone. Like, I was the friend to come to, but I didn't know, like Corinne said, like, I didn't know that so much of this information was available to the public. My knowledge was like, okay, there's, these people with an R next to their name, and I align with the majority of this person's beliefs versus this person. So that's who I'm voting for. And then a certain candidate last year that a friend of mine knew, who I supported, she started questioning some of his behavior and saying things, and it wasn't things that I could prove, but generally when someone has smoke, there's even more smoke that you can find. And that's what made me start to go on a research binge. And actually, I found you two through that.
So I think it's safe to say we can just go out and say who we're talking about, how we all kind of like connected.
Oh, correct.
We're kind of
What?
waiting for you to lead us on that. Just because.
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and say it. I mean, it's no secret. I had gotten into it because I don't, obviously I'm here, I'm researching candidates, and one day, the Major Williams, we all know who he is. Name is infamous now in California. Had challenged naysayers and haters to look up all of his expenditures because they're out there in the public. To which I said, challenge accepted, and I did it, and I looked it up and found a lot of red flags. Posted that video, which then got me, I guess, got sent to Corinne, which then got to Camille, and then here we are almost a year, 2 years later, still researching candidates. So
A lot has
Okay.
happened in that time. We've been
a lot
sued.
has happened.
Phil represented us. We've won the lawsuit. We've, been, the Major Williams who sued us has been ordered, court ordered to pay our legal fees. Way to go, Phil. Major win. He still hasn't paid. So a lot has happened since the three
Yeah,
of
a
us
lot has
linked up.
happened
Well,
since
for a year ago.
since that video. But let's get into how do we go about doing that? And I guess we'll start with the state candidates in California. That's a good place to start. So let me pull up my screen right here so everyone can see what we're going to be looking at. So this is called Cal Access. Now, they're supposed to have updated it. They spent like millions of dollars on updating this website. It's not going to be ready until 2025. It's been delayed because it's California. Who knows why it's been delayed? But this is where you would go, and you get this on the Secretary of State website, and you can search for anybody running for state offices in California. And we'll get to congressional and federal candidates next. But is there anything you guys want to comment, like when you first get to this page, what you're trying to look for?
Sure. Obviously, you type in any candidate. You could, I don't know, Phil, if you want to use Major Williams as a reference, but you would type in any candidate, and there is a way to sort by current years, current election, or previous years. Although you'll see a couple, there's going to be a couple terminated campaigns, and then a current one, an active one.
Yeah, so what you're looking at here is you can just put in anybody's name and it'll show you the recipient committee. And terminated means it's over. 2022 is what is going on right now. And then there was Williams for mayor of Pasadena 2020. So that was when he ran for mayor of Pasadena. This is his current one right now. So why don't we take a gander at whether or not he's actually spent any money recently? This page right here, you guys can just jump in. I'll just drive the wheel if you guys want to talk about what we're looking at right now.
I guess you could go to expenditures.
So that means money that he spent.
Money he spent.
Yep. Yeah. So you have all these different things you can do: general information, contributions received, expenditures. So this is what, like, if we're going back to like the Major Williams video that I originally did, I like to look at candidates' expenditures, because I think if you can see what your candidate is spending money on, it's a big red flag. Because if they're not spending money on stuff like mailers, campaign materials, advertising, or anything like that, stuff that would generally help you get elected, that might be something you want to look at. Would you guys agree with that?
I agree. Even fundraising, I think, is okay to spend money on, but that, that can get a little gray area-ish.
This is where I like to go first, and normally I would sort by date. You can't. He didn't put any dates in this particular instance, but that's how normally I would look at it.
Mm-hmm. You can also sort by amount as well. So if you want to start, I like to start like from highest number descending, because I don't care about like if you spent $5 here. I want to see if you spent like big money at certain places.
Like $5,000 at the Ritz-Carlton?
Yes. Yeah. No small amount. So first one at the top of his list, Al's Auto and Gas, $106. I'm assuming that might be gasoline or filling up his car, or
that's fine. I mean, gas is fine.
Correct.
For the most part.
Correct. That shouldn't be a red flag. Candidates have to campaign. Candidates, people donate money so they can campaign. Costs money to drive around a town, a state, a county. So that's fine. They should be totally fine.
But keep looking at the gas, because I want to point something out about that on this particular campaign.
Correct. I just don't want this video to be one-sided to where every campaign candidate.
No, not every.
Is another example of someone who bought gas at a.
Yeah, there's not every time someone buys gas is a red flag. And that's another caveat. And I've seen this happen, and this is why we want to do this video, is because I've had people who sent me stuff and saying, oh, they, a certain candidate spent this much on something, isn't that a red flag? And I would say, well, no, if it's allowable under whether it's the California rules or under the FEC rules, that's fine. And there are some things that are big ticket items. Just because it's a big number doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. You have to look at stuff that kind of like sticks out to you as like, well, why were they doing this? Like, why would like Omar Navarro is a good example of why did he spend thousands of dollars at the Bellagio when he's campaigning for a seat in California? But I mean, that's stuff that should be a huge red flag that should blare at you. But Camille, you said you wanted to
So
keep going
I
down
don't
this
think you
list.
can see it on this screen, but if you were to pull up the actual filings that he submitted to for the financials, what you're going to notice is that every time he went to a gas station, it was all within one small area. It's mostly Marietta and then cities connected to Marietta, which is where he lives. And we have another candidate that I can show an example of this. So this isn't just specific to Major Williams, but if they're driving around and buying gas to campaign, that's fine. But he's a statewide, he's running to run the state. He wants to be the governor of the entire state of California. And yet all of his gas purchases are within just a couple miles of his home. So so he's the only campaigning in his home. And then what's funny about that is that if you look at his contributions, I believe he only has one contribution this year from somebody in his city. And so why is he spending allegedly $100, hundreds of dollars on gas in one small area, and he's only got one donation from within that area?
Camille, excuse me, Camille, when you search, do you search by date or by amount? Sorry, I'm gonna get a drink.
I generally search by date, but it's fine to search by amount. To pull up the contributions, I think you just went to the screen, but you can actually look at the filings or export it, and then it's easier to do a search, or you could just do a search on your screen for those cities, Waldemar, Marietta, Temecula, etc., and see how many contributions he's really getting from that area. And is he actually out earning the area? But again, as a state candidate, you're trying to win the entire state. You're not going to win the entire state in 3 cities. Now, I understand if he's going to Northern California, he's probably having to fly up there and then use Uber and whatnot. But I don't even see any of those charges on here. I don't see flights. I don't see hotels. I don't see Uber. I don't see Lyft. So now I'm not seeing somebody actually campaigning the entire state.
Especially if you're running for governor, you're not running for governor and you're going to win in just Marietta or your little county. You have to go all over the state.
Right. And so how serious is this candidate?
Yeah. Just touching on like geographical location. I don't know if this is out of order of what we wanted to talk about, so we can touch back on it. But this is also why it's important to follow these candidates that you're vetting. If they're posting, how do we say it? I know Camille and I will do a lot of cross referencing to their website showing when or where they may have had a campaign event, or on their social media, because if they post, money on a fundraiser, and then you go to their social media account and they're on vacation, and they're not at a fundraiser, that's a red flag. They're spending $200 at Masters on a fundraiser, and then their social media shows they were on vacation with their family. That's, social media really makes it easy to see what people are doing.
Yeah. Yeah. You can get that in depth if you wanted to cross-reference. I mean, people, I think they don't put it together that the stuff that they say, these dates, and you can cross-reference and follow stuff and say, where were they? They spent money at this place. Were they really doing what they were saying? And a lot of times people who are campaigning want to show you everything that they're doing. They kind of want to overshare because sometimes they just like being in the limelight a little bit too much. So to their own fault.
And just to be clear, dates aren't necessarily going to match up exactly, because sometimes they have to put a deposit down, or it was prepaid, or maybe they didn't post it on social media that same day. And that's fine. I mean, you don't have to be very intelligent to figure out if they have an expense in another state and then a month later they show you at this hotel, you know, and it matches up. Like that's not like necessarily, it's not a red flag to be like, well, they posted that a month later, or they
True.
like, no, that's not a lie. Now, what business were they doing at the hotel? That's where you have to really, you know, kind of sort through, did they actually have legit business at the hotel, or was it just a family vacation?
Yeah. So just for like comparison's sake, let's just do like Gavin Newsom. He's got a lot. Oh my goodness, that's a lot of
Some super PACs too.
Yeah, so when you put it, you also get a lot of their PACs and people who are backing him. Newsom for California, this was 2010. Why can't I find where his California Patriot Coalition? Oh, that's for recall Gavin Newsom. Why can't I find here? We'll just do this. Here we go. Newsom for California governor 2022. So this gives you an idea of like contributions from this period of $1.8 million total contributions, ending cash. So you can see right here, this is how much he has on hand. So in case you're wondering how much cash people have on hand, Noodles has a lot of cash on hand to spend in this upcoming election. And he can also send that cash out to other people as well. Committees can send cash to they can send it to the Democratic Party, they can send it to other candidates. So him raising $23 million he's not going to probably spend $23 million, but he'll likely use that for other purposes as well. Any other state candidates you would like to use as an example to like hop into to look at their stuff?
Do you want to use the other one that you recently did a video on?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's FEC though. We'd have to jump.
No.
Oh no, that's FEC too because he's congressional.
Oh, it is. You're right. Sorry.
Yeah, those are FEC. Anybody in Congress, you have to go through FEC. So I was
let's just another thing is I think the people that I usually look up, I would say, other than the people in my own state that I'm interested in voting for, are people that we already like have a feeling are kind of shady. But I think it's important when you're doing this to not go in with an attitude of like trying to find something. It's more of just seeing what pops out and just being curious. So yeah, I was going to say, I think we should look through like a popular Republican candidate, or not just a Republican candidate, but somebody who's popular, the Trimino or the guy who the GOP endorsed. So we can see, just to compare some red flags to a normal, what we would call a normal campaign.
Yeah. So like this is Anthony Trimino's 2022 committee. And you can see right here, $15,000 on campaign consultants.
I need to be a consultant.
Yeah, I think that's where the money's at. I should stop doing social media and just try and be a consultant. $14,000 for campaign paraphernalia, another $10,000. Consultants, more $10,000. So Estrella Media is another. So these are big expenditures, and this would probably be more of a legitimate campaign where they're actually spending money on. Oh, Gasback Media, we know them.
I got mail from him, like snail mail from the Trimino campaign. They have, they have to buy the stamps for that. They have to buy the actual, printout. Someone had to make the graphics. Like obviously, all that is legit.
Yeah, and mailers are not like if you look up mailers and you talk to any candidate, they're going to tell you mailers are expensive. Like it's not cheap. You would think, we're just slapping stamps on these things and sending them out. Like assembly districts spend tens of thousands, if not like $100,000 on mailers. Like it's a lot of money to spend money on mailers. So that's definitely not a red flag if you see someone spending that much money on mailers. That's pretty much in line.
I think campaign managers and consultants is also normal, but I think when you see campaign manager, assistant campaign manager, assistant to the assistant campaign manager, it's getting a little extreme.
Yeah. And I guess we could get into that in a little bit, but you can also, if you wanted to, you could go through like all these business and all these names and like look up, are these actual, like that's one thing I like to do is if they have like a legitimate site, that's usually a good thing. If they have like an actual office, that's another thing. You can go on Google Maps and like put in their address. And if their address is something like a single bedroom apartment that was just started, I don't know, like 2 months before the campaign ended, that's a big red flag.
Joe
If a
Collins.
campaign, it seems like we're getting a lot of examples from Joe Collins. There's a couple candidates who are very good for these examples. But that's another way you can do it. So this is just like a starting point. And even though you may look at these numbers and say, oh, this looks really fishy, the next step is you actually have to go and like look at where this money's going and who it's going to, correct?
Yes. And if you look at the actual filings, it usually has their address or at least the city and zip code. So if it's a really standard name, you're able to, search it, adding in the zip code or city. And then something else I was going to add is that there's a way, it's kind of confusing, but I do have a link to it. I remember every time I'd go back on the Cal Access site to find it, I would be like searching for 10 minutes to find it. But you can search by a particular expense, like see who else has paid these consultants or this company. And that's like, if a lot of people are using them, they're probably a very legit company that's popular and they're getting the work done and people want to use them. But if it's something that's standing out to you and only one candidate is using them, that doesn't mean it's a red flag, but it could be.
Is the website OpenSecrets.org or OpenSecrets?
It's actually on Cal Access, but
okay.
like I said, I have a link. It's just, it always takes forever to find.
All right.
So here's an example of talking about mailers. This is Brian Dolly. First thing, $200,000 campaign literature and mailings. So,
and that's what it should cost to mail out covering a whole state, correct?
Yeah, a whole state for governor. It's and he also has another $50,000. So, and then another is radio airtime and production costs $50,000, and more mailings $25,000. So these are things that like you look at and go, okay, this looks pretty straightforward. Print ads $15,000. Nothing really out of the ordinary here. Nothing that you would go, this seems really odd.
Does he have any charges at Foot Locker?
Not that I see. Unless you spend none at
Bath
H&M.
Beyond. Just want to make sure we clear it all.
Signorama. No, none at Ralph's. It doesn't look like.
Trader Joe's?
No, nothing at Trader Joe's. Yeah, I mean, it looks like, this looks like this guy's actually trying to run a campaign. So that's always a good thing. I'm trying to think if we could want to go.
Oh,
sorry.
That's okay.
Plus, in the case of Brian Dolly, you can check his voting record because he is current assembly. So you can see how he's voted on issues.
Yeah. I just want to go back to like Major Williams real quick.
Oh, real quick. That's never quick.
Yeah. No. We'll go back through this one. Let's see. Expenditure made. You can go to historical if it's like earlier.
You'll want to go to the 2021, I think, for the special election.
2020? Mm-hmm. No expenditures found. Where's his old campaign? The first one that I did.
Are you clicking on historical?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Huh. Interesting.
Go through. Oh, what does it say now?
I was trying to find the one that I originally did to show like stuff that makes a big difference.
It was from 2020. It's 2021. He has no whatchamacallits.
Yeah, that was 2019, 2020. Anyway, well, we can move on to another candidate, and we'll move on to the next site, which is the FEC. And Corinne, you like the FEC because that's one place you like to deep dive on. So you mentioned Joe Collins a couple times. You want to jump into Joe Collins?
We can. I haven't in a while.
Okay.
But yeah, sure, we can. Let's look. Should we look at? Well, I feel like we kind of have an advantage because his I think it was 2019 and 2020 reports looked vastly different from his most recent reports. The 2019 and 2020 reports, there's a Daily Caller article about it. You can just Google it, which I think that's also very important to start with, is just Googling them and seeing any articles, Googling as much as you can, scouring their social medias, finding what you can find. People have a pretty hard time of hiding who they are. They'll usually tell on themselves with the words they use, things they say, the things they repost, et cetera, et cetera. So I believe his most recent, either from 2021 or 2022, his most recent campaign filings look a little more legit than they did in 2019 and 2020. But yeah, let's do that.
Let's see, Joe Collins. Where's he running? California. 43 was against Maxine Waters, correct?
Yeah, that was the old one.
Yeah, let's go to that one because that's the one where he made a butt ton of money.
Yes.
Let's see, total spent. So when you go to the FEC website, they're very good. You can put in anybody's name and they'll bring up all the different campaigns.
Mhm.
Why is it not doing anything?
Of the 2020 election.
That's 2018. That's not what we want.
But I don't. Is that
His current one that says 43rd might be correct because he switched districts in the middle of the election.
Yeah, now he's running in Ted Lieu's district. So there we go. Is this it? Here we go. Okay, so this is 2020. And you can look at total contributions. This was the big one for him. This is the one where he got the fancy Arsenal Media. I'm walking through downtown or Compton or what South LA.
Yeah, like by Maxine Waters' house.
Yeah, and he raised $10 million. That was the hottest. That was the hotness in 2020. Was the I'm walking through my dilapidated, rundown district. There's another congressional.
Those ads raised a lot of money.
They did raise a lot of money, millions and millions of dollars. So he got $10 million right here, $10.6 million. And then you can see contributions, and then you can go down here to total disbursements is kind of like expenditures on the statewide. He spent $9.9 million of it. So that's a lot of money he spent in 2020. And this is one where you can look through. Am I looking at browse disbursements? So sort of the same thing like with the state where you can look up all their disbursements. Again, I like to start and like do the amounts at the top. And we can kind of go down and look. Radio advertising, that looks fine. Fundraising, outdoor advertising, TV advertising, more fundraising. More fundraising.
Yeah, this all looks normal.
This all looks normal, and then we kind of get down a little.
I mean, it looks normal, but look at particulars. It might be just because it says fundraising that doesn't.
That's true.
Look at what advertising is. What is advertising? Start looking at that.
Yeah, and look at some of these. We've talked about this before. You can look at some of these media corporation or these media advertisings, and sometimes they'll just be like, we're going to buy you Instagram followers.
Exactly.
So you have to be careful about it. Says advertising, consulting. I think it's this company, Infused Media Corporation, which is one of those ones where you pay them and they increase your Instagram followers. So it looks great when, yeah.
It's like bots. You're like paying for fake followers, which makes you feel like you're popular. And then if you're popular, that means people like you. If people like you, that means you're credible. And if you're credible, that means you have a chance and that people should give you money. So there's an argument as to why somebody thinks it would be smart to pay for fake social media followers, but that's not what people are giving you money for. It's not going to win you an election.
Yeah, and
he spent $10,000 on Instagram following. You can buy interactions, so, little comments, likes, viewers on your lives, as well as followers. And it's funny because if you find some of the companies, you'll see it was like X amount of dollars a month, and then you literally look at their website and they're like, for X amount of dollars a month, this is what we'll give you, and you're like, I know what you bought. Yeah. And it turns out $10,000 was a small amount compared to some of the other candidates. So.
And so what I would do here in this case, I don't know if there's another way to like organize this. It might be on OpenSecrets. I don't want to confuse the viewers, but it'll show it'll organize it in terms of like how much money they gave to each company, like who they gave the most money to. So then it's kind of easier to look up these companies. So right now I would literally Google like Century City Consulting, and then you would see if do they have a website? If they don't have a website, then you would click on, if you can click on the receipt and see, do they have an address? Do they have an office? Can you call and see if they're a real legit business? I would go to Campaign Solutions, Limelight Media. I would just Google these things to see if there's a website. If they don't have a website, like that to me is very sus. Because what people do, I'm not saying this is the case here, but what people do is they will say, hey, brother, sister, let's open an LLC called XYZ Consulting, and I'll give you $20,000 a month. And then now my brother and I have $20,000 a month in our, in our pockets, in our bank account. Yeah. And I give him 5, I take 15, and it's the easiest money I've ever made. So that's what people do and how they give themselves kickbacks with this stuff. So I think it's important to see if these companies are legit. So I would literally, I would just start Googling these consulting companies, these, they're all consulting. So how many, and I don't know, this may be foolish of me, Phil, you may know better. How many consultants does a candidate usually use?
I mean, I guess it depends on the race, the size of the race.
Yeah.
There's like an assembly race, you might be using one company because you're not going to be using multiple consultants who are all going to have different opinions. You're going to kind of go with a consulting company that has a track record that says, hey, this is the roster of candidates that have won with us, and this is what we do. You're not going to hire 2 different ones, and they're both going to be kind of conflicting. And now it's sort of like coming back to me from the video I did on Joe Collins. And if anybody wants to watch that video on Joe Collins, it's on this YouTube page. Campaign Solutions, I remember looking up, there's somebody, they're out of Virginia. I remember their phone didn't work. Very sketchy website that looks like it was built like in a day. And Century City Consulting was the one that I looked up that was created in an apartment 2 or 3 months right before the election. So he dumped a lot of money into Century City Consulting, and he never really answered who is Century City Consulting and why were they started 2 or 3 months right before an election. That's usually a huge red flag, because usually consulting companies are established, they've been around, they don't just pop up in the middle of an election, and you don't pay a brand new consulting company $50,000-$60,000 for just popping up right before the election.
Correct. When you've paid the other consultants $5, $10, $15, $20,000.
You could also search on the FEC site. If you go back to on the main page, it says campaign finance data, and then you can click on that and click on spending, and you're able to click disbursements from there and search for a particular name of a company, and then you can put in a candidate's name and see how much they spent on that company, or see what other candidates are using that same company, those consultants and whatnot.
Yeah, like another good example is, I brought up Arsenal Media before. Like Arsenal Media charges an arm and a leg to do their campaign ads because they work and they raise a crap ton of money. But that's an example of like, you may see the number and say, wow, they're spending a lot of money on this company. But if you look up Arsenal Media, you'll see that they're an established company. They have a roster of candidates. You'll see that they worked with, Joe Collins was one, Kim Klacik was one, Madison Cawthorn, I believe, was one, was Lauren Boebert another one. Like it was like this whole wave of Republicans who used Arsenal Media. But those are the type of consultant companies you're going to look at and go, okay, this is legit. They just charge an arm and a leg. But if you look them up and they don't have anything, that should be the big red flag that something fishy is going on here. Correct.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's like, agreed. Let's see. I'm going to poke through. There were some other things that stood out when Joe Collins in 2020.
You really have to like put on your detective cap and like be kind of vigilant in it and go down the rabbit hole with like every entry, company,
Yep.
and then it kind of things will get fun.
I do want to point out real quick, because I mentioned you can look up the city and state, where these companies are, where they're spending the money. But big companies like Uber are based in California. And so if you're looking at a candidate in another state and you're like, why are they using Uber in California? Well, that's just where the billing goes to.
Yeah.
You have to be careful about stuff like that. You can't start freaking out about like, why do they have all these airline tickets in Texas? No, I think like a few of them are based there. So
Yeah. Like the Palm restaurant, I'm assuming this might have been a fundraiser for $14,000. I don't think this was like just one tab, but
Mhm.
it's quite possible it says food and beverage. Um, that could have been a fundraiser. And that's another thing you can go back and look on their social media or their website. You can go back and see, were they advertising a fundraiser at the Palm restaurant at any point? Because if they were, then you can say, okay, well, that makes sense that he had a fundraiser at the Palm restaurant. Usually you want to advertise fundraisers because you want to get as many people there. You don't want to keep it a secret, but those are ways you can kind of cross-reference. And like Corinne was saying, you got to put on your detective hat and go down the rabbit hole of like, why would they spend $14,000 at the Palm restaurant? Was it a fundraiser? Let me go to their social media. Let me look and see what they were doing at that time, back in 2019. So around that time, not necessarily July, but at least in 2019, what did he have a fundraiser at the Palm? So, and this Donatelli Connell made a butt ton of money off Joe Collins, who I think was a consultant. So, but still, that's a lot of money.
This is a totally off subject question, but how many campaigns does a consultant have to lose before people don't need their consulting anymore? Just curious.
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, at a certain point, you can only fleece so many candidates into believing you're a good consultant, and then sooner or later, a good candidate's going to be like, "How many campaigns have you won, or how many successful campaigns have you done?" And if you say, "Well, none. Nobody I've represented has gotten elected," that might be an issue. But if you only fleece one, and you're good at fleecing one candidate, it's very lucrative. It looks like you can make a lot of money. He spent, this is another thing, this might be another fundraiser, $8,000 at the Trump International Hotel, or Arsenal. This is what I was talking about, $8,000. So, security equipment, $9,000 at Costco. I don't know what security equipment is, but so that's an example of the FEC. So if you're looking at anybody congressional, this would be where you go. There's other sites I want to move on to. You guys brought up OpenSecrets a lot. So this is one that I actually had opened up. If you guys want to talk about what is OpenSecrets and how do you use OpenSecrets, which is a great site.
Corinne, that's you.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were going to go through it. Let's see. I've done this. I've used OpenSecrets. I think OpenSecrets I like to use to see. So we just looked at ways to see what candidates were spending. I like OpenSecrets to see who's giving money to candidates. Like, who will this federal candidate, like a congressional candidate, who will they be beholden to once they get into office? So I mean, we can put, I don't know, Dan Crenshaw, his name. Let's see, like, he's a big name. He accepts money. So he's, I like to see.
So would you click on his campaign finance summary or?
Yeah.
Okay. So he's raised, is that $19 million?
That's what it says from 2019 to 2020. So this, I think, is a little old. But let's see, scroll down a little bit. I thought there was a way to click, and forgive me, I haven't been on here in like a month or two. Scroll down a little bit. Yeah, right there where it says top industries. Are any of those
Right here.
links? Yeah, are any of those, is that a link?
He's the top recipient of following industry: gun rights and real estate.
Okay, so he's a
Um,
top industry of gun rights. He's also not speaking at the NRA. I'm curious to see gun rights meaning what? So is that from like the NRA or from smaller organizations? So he's not speaking at the NRA convention this week. He is instead in Ukraine, where he just voted to send $40 billion to.
yeah, so you could see like does gun rights $99,000. Do they have
Gun
trying to look?
rights? So it's funny how they put gun rights up there, and that's like at the bottom of his list. Sorry,
Defense.
because I
Okay.
don't have the mouse. Okay, those are some links, but I thought that. Sorry for the viewers if this is a little slower than we anticipate. I'm trying to like scroll up and I can't. I know from what I looked at, you can look at what companies donated to him, not just the industry, but the companies. And so we saw that like Microsoft donated, they weren't a big donor, but they gave him a small chunk of change, I would say. I believe there were some like pharmaceutical companies that did. I could be wrong.
I think another good site, and I think they're in partnership. You do followthemoney.org is really good as well. And I think that they're partners with OpenSecrets, so you can see like if you go to candidates and just click on Dan Crenshaw, they have all this information, and it will show you like, so in this last race in 2020, or in this race right now, you go to that one and you click on it, and it's going to open a bajillion tabs for you. So if you're someone who likes a bajillion tabs on your, you can see the different top donors, top industries.
So do top donors, yeah.
And this shows you, this is a really great way to say, yeah, this is, I think, what you were talking about. You can see all the different companies. So Petroleum Veterans, National Association of Realtors, National Beer Wholesalers Association. But you can see all the different companies that Lockheed Martin, no shocker there.
Oh my gosh. That's so bizarre that Lockheed Martin donated to him and he just voted to send $40 billion to Ukraine to continue their war. That's so bizarre. Who would have guessed?
Kind of like Halliburton as well.
Too? Oh my gosh, I'm so shocked.
I know.
You look shocked.
So when people, yeah, so this is what that's why I like this site, Follow the Money. And this is something I always tell people is like, if you ever want to know why are certain politicians voting a certain way, just follow the money. Literally go and look at like who is giving the money. Lockheed Martin gave him $11,000 for this recent campaign.
And that's not even a lot of money, but I think what's the cap? 30,000, I think. So
yeah, they can't give him unlimited amounts. But like if he has a super PAC and they're donating a bunch of money to a super PAC or something like that,
I would find it hard to believe he doesn't, but could be wrong.
But yeah, you can go through here. This Follow the Money is another great source. A lot of petroleum companies, which makes sense because he's in Texas. I'm trying to
totally makes sense.
Other companies, AT&T, Boeing, and you can also do, if you want to do similar to OpenSecrets, you can just do this. Securities
health
investment.
Professional. What's health professional?
Does it say? See, I think you can click on and show. Oh man, now it's getting. Give it a second.
Definitely just popped right up.
But you can really dive into a lot of this stuff if you want to see. You can see if the pharmaceutical companies donated to them.
Does that mean they didn't donate anything to him, or is it loading?
It's just, I think it's just a loading, right?
Oh yeah, it's $103,000.
I think this is probably why they're partnering with OpenSecrets, because this site can be a little wonky at sometimes. It's dealing with thousands of database.
I was going to say it's a lot of stuff to organize.
It's a lot of stuff. So it breaks it down. If you really want to get this wonky, you can get very, very wonky with this stuff. But yeah, Follow the Money. OpenSecrets is also very good, and you can basically put in anybody and see
Wait, does it?
where.
Did it say if pharmaceutical companies gave to him?
I said healthcare, so let's go back. We can go back to this.
Yeah, I'm curious since we're here.
For anybody who's listening on audio, I feel bad that you're trying to follow along on audio.
I know I wouldn't. I wouldn't.
People on audio are like, "What the heck are you guys talking about?" This is one you have to tune into YouTube and watch. Top industries. That's where we're going, right? Healthcare professionals.
I also think it's important to note that like it's hard. It's like
Here you
people
go.
that
Pharmaceuticals.
People that know a lot about this stuff are usually in this industry, and then they will usually want to explain or excuse away why some of this looks the way it looks. So it even still for me, it's kind of hard to get answers because people don't want to like ruin it for themselves or give it up, or they'll be like, oh no, it's normal that Bill Gates would give, a few of these people money, where it's like, does you know what I mean? Like, do you need to accept the money, or can you return that check because no, my constituents elected me for a reason, and it's not to represent Bill Gates, or it's not to vote on behalf of Bill Gates. So, I've had candidates that I know very well kind of explain some of this stuff away, and I still don't buy it.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you can certainly reject money from anybody. You don't have to take money from pharmaceutical and Lockheed Martin. You can say, well, I'm not going to take money from weapons producers because I don't plan on voting for anything that is going to help them. So you're not required by law to accept any contribution. You can turn away a lot of this stuff. And if you want to make it a big deal, you can say, hey, Bill Gates tried to give me this check, and I said, no, sir. And make it a nice little social media post. Now, next thing I want to talk about outside of the money, and this is the last kind of point I want to talk about in terms of red flags and what we can look at, is when you're looking at certain races, you also have to look at, do they have a shot? So we've brought up Joe Collins a lot, and I think it's because he's a good example, is he ran against Maxine Waters in 2020. Now, Maxine Waters, and I have to make sure I find the right little, it's very hard in this little map right here.
You can
Adam.
You can also, what I think is what I do, which is an easy way, is if you just go to like, I don't know what search engine you're using, but any of them work. Just put in Congressional District CA 43. Yeah. Or like Congressional District 43, California, and it will pull up the Wikipedia page for it. And it will give you a breakdown of registration gap, the Cook Index, like the demographics of the district. I don't know if this Cook political report, I know for a lot of the Cook stuff I wanted to look at, you had to like subscribe, and it was like $500 a year or something. I didn't do it. But the Wikipedia page will break down every district. And then it will tell you like who's running in the D seat and the R seat. So it gives you like a nice picture of a lot of what you want to see.
Yeah. Well, I have that pulled up. We can look at Ballotpedia. I like Ballotpedia.
Okay. Is that what you're on right now?
This is the Cook political report, but this is this is where they get these numbers, and this is an important number to look at in terms of what district are you running in. So right now, Omar Navarro is running against Maxine Waters in California 43, the congressional district, and their rating is solid D, and their estimated PVI is plus 34. Now, Corinne, you want to explain what does that mean when it says like plus 34 for Democrat?
Yeah. So what it does is it takes this Cook political report, or the Cook Index, takes history and data of how it takes a lot of data, but it includes over the past, like I want to think 20 years or the past 20 elections of how the district voted in one way or another. I think I'm not sure if demographics play into that. I'm not 100% sure if like the registration gap falls into that. But if you Google Cook Index for it, it'll tell you how they get the number. It's usually how strong a district is, Democrat or Republican. But a D34 seat, where it says right there, it's a solid D. And if you can see it on the map, it's like dark blue. That means that a Republican has no chance of winning. That's
Yeah.
I believe it has something to do with like the percentage over the national average of how they, like, if the national average was whatever percentage of voting for a Republican versus Democrat in the presidential election, maybe, or just in the last election. And then it's like they voted that much over the average. So they're like really high up there with like the average is whatever, but they're like way higher. 34 is that's a very high number.
That's a very safe district
for a Democrat.
Yeah, yes. For a Democrat, I mean, Maxine Waters or any Democrat, that is a very safe district. The rule that I've heard, and you can let me know if you agree with me or not, is that competitive districts are usually if it's 10 points or less. So if it's a district that's 10 points or less, you can make a run at that district. In
one like campaign cycle, yes. If it's 10% in a D10 district or below, then yes, you can win that in one campaign cycle. If it was a little higher, like a D15, it might take you a lot longer, of a lot of groundwork, a lot of effort. But yes, a dark blue district, as you see it for the color, and a D34, that's not going anywhere. Republicans don't send your money there. You are wasting your money, you're wasting your time, you're wasting your energy. And that doesn't mean ignore the people, but that just means don't put all your eggs in that basket. Spread your money and your eggs around to those light blue districts and those pink districts and those districts that are in the middle or purple, so that we keep the seat instead of dumping money into a bottomless pit that we're not going to win that seat.
Yeah, and not to, I mean, we're going to harp on Joe Collins because he's a perfect example here in California. You think about in 2020 that people dumped $10 million into Joe Collins' race in a district that was unwinnable to begin with. And you think about what you could have done if you'd taken that $10 million and given it to other candidates in closer races. And if you had, in the words of Bernie Sanders, spread the wealth around, you probably could have made a whole bunch of more races competitive if you gave, I don't know, 10 other districts $1 million. It would have put them over the top to flip a lot more districts. So that's why looking at who's running, if they have a fancy video, if they have a great campaign ad, I know it lights social media on fire, and you know, someone like Benny Johnson may post it and then a bajillion people see it and give money. It's important that you look at what district that person is actually running in. And if you double check and say, oh crap, they're running in a district that's plus 34 Democrat, I'm not going to give my hard-earned money. So Omar Navarro is now running against Maxine Waters. He's got no shot, and I think he's actually in the red when it comes to his campaign, according to his most recent expenditure. I think he has like a couple $1,000s. He started with like no money on hand, made 4,000, and somehow still has no money on hand. Just for an update, Joe Collins is running in this race now, not any better. It's plus 21, so it's against Ted Lieu, who is definitely safe. He's not going to win that race either. But let's see if I can find it.
Now, I know you're going to get a little bit of pushback on this. What do you say to someone who says that what is the point of a Republican governor running in California? That is obviously a very blue state.
That's what I was going to say. Let's do California, because as I'm going through my messages, I've had posting about this video we're doing, I've had about a dozen people ask me, who should we vote for governor of California?
Well, we can talk about that. I want to point out, as the flip side, we're talking a lot about races that are not races you should invest in. But California 6 is someone who we support is running in that district. And that is only a +8. So when we're talking about like races that are definitely winnable, they're tough, but they're winnable. A +8 California 6 is a district that is winnable and can be flipped. And I believe the Republican National Committee has recognized that this is a flippable or winnable district. So that's an example of a light blue district that, with the right candidate who knows what they're doing, and it's Tamika Hamilton who's running in this district. It's
But
possible.
it's also important for people to know that if somebody is running in a medium blue district and they aren't running in a dark pink or even a red district, are going to have a vastly different message. Like as somebody running in a blue district, a DA district, is going to be a vastly different message to win than a Republican in a pink district or a red district.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind.
Absolutely. Side note, if I know Corinne brought up, people are asking her questions. If you guys have any questions, you can put them in the chat and we'll get to them. Last thing I want to touch upon, and then we can talk about the governor. This is the site that I was talking about, Ballotpedia. So you can look up any, really any district or any race, California congressional. I like to go here. Give me a number. 43. Is that the one we were looking at?
Mm-hmm.
So you can look at this. This is a great place to look. This will tell you what's going on. Blanket primary, Maxine Waters. This was the race in 2012. If you want to get an idea of who ran in different races. And yeah, so this is a great place to look at districts and figure out more information about it. So with that, you were saying people were asking about governor in California. What's the question? What are our thoughts about who to?
The question was, who do we vote for? I think that this gubernatorial race is vastly different from the recall election. I think that Republicans actually had a shot in the recall election. That may have been I don't know, naive wishful thinking on my part, but can we pull up California's either Ballotpedia and their stats, or I also, if we don't have time to touch on it in this meeting or in this video, I also think it's important that people go to their state's Secretary of State website, and you can look at by district, like congressional district, or by state, how many Republican voters were either registered during somebody's campaign. So I know, like Joe Collins, not to bring him up again, we'll talk about, I registered 50,000 Republican voters. But if you go to his district and you look it up, and you can see the registered, like number of voters registered or gained or lost, that don't say that. It doesn't match up. So people can say what they want, but the website show the proof and the data. Or somebody like Kim Klacik in her 2018 to 2020 race, there was like a net loss over like 2,300, I think, registered Republicans. So if your district that you're campaigning in, you're losing registered voters, you're not going to win a deep blue district by losing registered Republican voters. So that's also very important to look at.
We did just redistrict though, so it's a little confusing now, but yes.
True.
That's California.
And that's one of the caveats about Ballotpedia. For right now, they're still updating a lot of the redistricting. Okay. So you'll look at stuff, and especially in assembly, it gets really confusing. So just keep that in mind, that they are they're still figuring that out. So this is like what you see when you look up California governor. You see Noodle's creepy face. He needs a better picture, and that picture just looks like a bad school picture. And it gives you a list of everybody who's running currently in the governor's race, so the primary that's coming up in a week or so, we'll figure out who the top two of these people are. I bet it's going to be Gavin Newsom, and I don't know. I don't want to make a prediction of who the second person would be, but I can make predictions of who it won't be, and it gives you withdrawn or disqualified candidates. To give you an idea, in 2018, Gavin Newsom won 61.9% of the vote to John Cox's 38.1%, and he was a Republican. So,
we do know, though, that a lot has changed in California since 2018, with the lockdowns, with the increase of homelessness, with the increase of crime, with the increase of gas, with the increase of rent and housing. We know that California is losing, hundreds of thousands of residents a year. So I guess California didn't get redistricted. Can we pull up like this current stats of California, or?
Yeah, I believe so. I think we can.
Because I think a lot of Republicans and people I know are like, hey, Republicans have a chance this time because people are sick of Newsom and the Democrats. And because I'm not voting in California anymore, I don't live there anymore. I haven't looked it up. After the recall election, I've kind of been off of it, or off of California state politics, I should say.
Let's see. I thought it would have it on here, but are you looking for like voter breakdown?
Yeah, I would just go to like that, or see if you can just Google like well, I know for the district if you pull it up, but if you pull up like California and just go to the Wikipedia page, what will it give you? The registration breakdown?
I think the Secretary of State has it, but I don't remember exactly where.
I know the Secretary of State has like the registration gaps, but it's, you know, like you got to click and click and click and click and click to get here. Whereas I think the Wikipedia page kind of gives you all of it.
Okay, let's look up Wikipedia.
But I don't know if it'll show up obviously for California. I know it does for districts, but I don't know if it'll, you know, if you're not kind of specific about that you're looking for voter info, if it'll show you.
California voter?
Yeah. Just put up California and see if it gives you.
I think if we just do California, it'll tell us what the breakdown is of. In case you didn't know, California is the state in the Western United States.
Yeah, over there where it gives you like
all these stuff.
Kind of where it says like median income, population. Does it show you
U.S. House?
So it shows you all those seats, right? Governor's a Democrat, lieutenant governor's a Democrat, state legislature, all that. Democrat. The House delegation is 42 Democrats to 10 Republicans. So California has a super majority. We know that. If you keep going down, does it show you like a Cook index? Or there you go, government and politics. And then if you keep scrolling down, what's that little graph? Sorry, it's super small on my screen. Does the graph show you anything? Usually if you scroll down.
That's just the budget. So
okay.
Oh, here we go.
There we go. Yeah, it's
finally
all,
as of April 8th, 2022. Democrat 46.75%. That's 10.2, almost 10.3 million voters are Democrat. 5.2 are Republican. 5 million are no party preference.
Okay.
If that gives you an idea of the breakdown.
Okay, and then there's almost 1 million independents. And then green and all the other ones are little bitties. So Republicans, in order to win this race, would have to get every Republican vote, some of the Democrat votes, all of the no party given votes, and some of the independents. So does it give a Cook index over there, or oh no, it just shows by like count what by district, by state district, what the breakdown is. So, I mean, I'm just going to take a shot in the dark. I don't think the Republicans are going to win a governor seat. Do you, Phil?
No.
Do you, Camille?
No.
So my suggestion is give your money to winnable seats. I think you vote for who you like. I think it doesn't matter. That's what I'm saying. I know people are going to like that. It's not what you want to hear. It doesn't make you feel good. But I would say, sure, who won the primary? Was there a primary? No, the primary is coming up. I know the GOP endorsed somebody. That will probably matter. But for the primary, you just vote, I guess, who you like best, because it don't matter. Republicans are not going to win the governor seat. So do not give your money to any Republican candidate running for governor. Give it to a winnable seat, a local seat that matters most.
Yeah, like Phil always says, local, flip seats. Because it wouldn't matter if we don't flip seats and we have, a Democrat majority legislation, and then we get a Republican, and then they're going to have a hard time getting things passed because.
But yeah, let's be honest. There was 42 Democrat legislator seats.
Assembly breakdown.
Yes, thank you. And 10 Republican, like that's a crazy supermajority. Why don't we focus about flipping some of those local, like those districts and California districts?
Yeah.
So that California is not a totalitarian regime run by the Democrats.
Yeah, and people, when you really dive into like the legislature and you see how fast they can get a lot of these bills through because they have a supermajority, you can really put a hamper on a lot of things if you get rid of the supermajority. And it
Yeah.
changes how committees are, and bills get bogged down in committees, and then they don't make it to the floor, and then they just die in committee, which is important. So there's a lot of stuff that just kind of slowing the bleeding a little bit in the legislature can make a huge difference. And even if you were to reincarnate Ronald Reagan and somehow elect him governor of California, it wouldn't really change what's happening here in California because there's still a huge Democratic supermajority that can just ram bills through. As a supermajority, it's veto proof, meaning they can just override any veto that the governor can do, so they can't even stop it.
Yes.
So in terms of like who to vote for, um, I mean, I don't believe in the. I agree with you. Vote for whoever you think when it comes to governor, whoever you think is the best, who has the best solutions, regardless of whether they have a D, R, or they're an independent. Like, just look at who the best is. I know a lot of people are like, who should I vote for, Dolly or Trimino? And I'm like, I can tell you right now, I don't think either of them have a chance to win governor. So it doesn't really matter who you vote for. You could write in Ronald Reagan. It doesn't really matter. They're not going to win for governorship. So it's the harsh reality, but it's true.
Correct.
So
And
you're not recommending Major Williams. I just want to clarify that.
No, we are not recommending Major Williams, and we're not endorsing Major Williams.
Okay. Yeah, anybody but that one. I will say I wasn't aware of like Cook indexes and registration gaps and all that stuff. I just thought, oh, you get registered so that you can vote. I didn't even put this stuff together before 2020, I would say, sadly. So usually I look at this first to see like, oh, is this a candidate I should give money to or I should get behind? I look at the Cook index of the state, of the seat, of the district. And then I'll either say, ooh, not a snowball's chance. And you know what? Or I would say, ooh, they have a chance. Now let me do some digging on them. So I actually start with a Cook index because that will tell you if it's worth even looking into them or not.
Yeah. And Cook is only for federal, correct? House and Senate?
Yes. So I believe, is it?
I don't know. I don't know how far the rabbit hole goes for Cook political index.
See, I'm not sure. I think you can put in state districts, 26 Arizona, and it will pull up like the state information for like the state district. I could be wrong, but maybe that's why it's important to look at like, I think it does, but I think that's why it's important also to look at the registration gap. You can do that for a state like assembly district, but I think the Wikipedia page will give you the Cook index on it.
Yeah.
Don't quote me though.
I know we've gone over the time, but can I add a few things of how I look into people, candidates?
Yeah. Go ahead. There's no time.
I can talk fast. One of the things I do is if they claim to own a business or a nonprofit, I go to opencorporates.com. I search by name or the name of their alleged nonprofit or business. Do they have other businesses? I look up, are they active? Were they suspended? Did they pay their taxes? What did they do? If they have a nonprofit, then I search that nonprofit. You can search IRS nonprofit, and then you can actually look up the nonprofit and look at their financials. If the nonprofit company only earned $50K or less, they just get a little postcard and you're not going to get very much information. It'll say like, oh, we sent a postcard out. But if they have more than that, then they are supposed to submit their tax filings, and you can look at them. So if they have this alleged nonprofit and their nonprofit brought in, whatever amount of money, and you look at the filings and you see that they actually paid themselves most of the money that it made, like where did the money go? You can actually look at the tax filing. You can see how legit is their nonprofit. If they're claiming to be a business owner, do they have a business? What is the business? And again, it's not that it has to be a great business, but what are they doing? And are they actually keeping up with their tax, their filings? Were they suspended for a reason? What happened? Why were they suspended? Why was a nonprofit suspended, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And so you have to look at those because there can be many red flags there. And again, where is the money going with a nonprofit? If they are constantly switching seats that they're running for, if in a small time frame they were running for Senate and then they were running for a district and then running for another district and another district, and you're like, wow, they just switched districts 4 times in 1 month. Why? That's a red flag. Stuff like that. So do they continue to run? Have they been like a candidate for 10 years and they're just living off of, their candidate financials? Do they have another job? That's not necessarily a red flag if they have another job. I understand campaigning does take a lot of time, but did they have another job? What were they doing prior to running for office?
Yeah, those are all good questions. I'm trying to remember the name of the defunct restaurant that had its license or its tax status suspended.
It was like Rallies or Rayleigh.
Oh yeah.
She gave like a whole bunch of money to, and because it was for like a election night party, and she gave like $100,000 to or something.
Rallies something, but
I
can't remember the name
my
of it now.
screenshots, but that'll take forever.
Yeah,
there's a lot of shenanigans going on in the Republican Party.
Yeah, this is a good site to look at. OpenSecrets is definitely a great site if you want to look up. So all kind of tying this all together, the Sherlock Holmes detective aspect of this is you can have all these tabs open. You can have your FEC. You start to look at like their expenditures. Then you look at like the companies, and then you say, okay, I'm going to go over OpenSecrets, and then I'm going to put the company name in, and then you can kind of pull up like what's going on with them. Like I wonder if like Century City Consulting comes up, but this is really where you start to go down the rabbit hole.
Solutions.
Oh, I always search their name with something like lawsuit, arrest, court, and look through articles, look through images and everything. Do they have, and you can actually make accounts and look up in your county. You can look up your county superior court and search name records. You can look up bankruptcy. Now, I don't want to like bab on anyone who has filed bankruptcy or anything, but if you filed bankruptcy and then all of a sudden filed to run for office, that's suspicious. Like if you find yourself in a bind and you're like, oh, I'm going to run for office, like, okay,
like
maybe not.
Century City Consulting, it was incorporated. It'll show you the 30th of July in 2020.
For an election that was in November of 2020?
Yeah, for an election that was in November of 2020.
So I think it was Joe Collins paid this company how much money? This brand new consulting company?
Tens of thousands of dollars, I remember. I'm trying to look, like, let's go, is it maps.google? I'm just giving you a quick example of like what it looks like when you want to look up something. So you have his, that's not what I wanted.
Century City Consulting? Oh, that address.
While you look, if a candidate blocks you for asking questions on their social media, that's a red flag. And I do want to say, in all seriousness, candidates are more accessible than you think. We have this idea from TV and movies that to get and meet your candidates and stuff that you have to pay thousands of dollars and go to some black tie event and all this stuff. Honestly, they're usually like in the back room of a church or a community building, and it's like $16 to get in because they just need to cover the cost of the event and stuff like that. When I look at my ballot, I have met most of the people that I mean, I've made it a point to meet most of the people, but I haven't gone to a single black tie fancy event. I haven't spent more than $20 to get into an event. And I make it a point to go introduce myself. I make it a point to say, I'm watching you. I have questions. This is who I am.
Is it right there in
that
corner?
I take this very seriously. If you're on my ballot, I want to know who you are. Oftentimes you can call them. I have called many of them. Amy Van West, I talked to last year before she switched districts. She's running in the 47th district against Katie Porter. And she assured me that when she was running for the 45th, if Michelle Steele jumped in for the 45th, she was not going to switch districts because she was the one that could win the 47th. And then Michelle Steele jumped in, and literally a week later, Amy Van West jumped ship. And this was after already switching from Senate to Congress earlier that year. I get suspicious of stuff like that. And I mean, she did lie to me on the phone. Then she lied about other stuff, but whatever.
Yeah, that's a big red flag when they're jumping from race to race, and especially in federal races, because you don't have to be in that district, so you can bounce from race to race. Omar Navarro switched races 3 times in the span of like 2 months because he was going to run against Kevin Kiley, then he's not running against Kevin Kiley, and then he's back to running against Maxine Waters. So this is the address. What you're looking at right now is the address I put in from Century City Consulting. So you can look this up on Google Maps. And
what's the date on that though?
2018. So they may have built something here. But at the time, this is what it's looking like right now. So, but you can look at that stuff, and that's the detective work that you can go down the rabbit hole.
Even on the filings, oftentimes when they put the address on something, you can go to Google Maps Street View. And you're like, that's a grocery store, that's not a gas station. Why are you claiming that you just spent $363 on gas at that grocery store?
Or the other thing you can do is you can just search the address.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you'll get like a Zillow ad, or if it's like residential.
Zillow would be good.
Here we go.
There it is.
So this is what I found this is the company that was created a couple months before the November 2020 election. It was like
what, three and a half months before. So this is where the consulting company that he paid, $50,000-$60,000 to 3.5 months before the election, they were gonna, this company right here was gonna help him win. And so what does that mean? That fancy apartment, that fancy office building was knocked down since then and is now being rebuilt like you saw on Google Maps?
Yeah, I mean, it's just shady because if, like we said, if this company was legit, why they wouldn't be out of an apartment 3 months before?
Well, someone might have a home office. Like I know when we started Officer Tatum business, it was when Brandon lived in an apartment in like North Scottsdale, and I'm pretty sure some of on the Incorporated it's still there, even though we haven't, like, he now has a legit office, we have a warehouse, et cetera, et cetera. But
Corinne, rationally, logically, if you're running to win an office and all of a sudden you hear of a consulting company that's brand new 3 months before the election, and you're like, so what have you done? Nothing. We're brand new, but we're really excited to work with you. Great. Take all my money. You have 3 months to, make this happen.
Yeah.
Also, if you look at when our company was incorporated, it was like 4.5 years ago. So, you know what I mean? Like, we have grown and we're a legit business now with offices and warehouses. But yeah, if they just started
they're not trying to earn our vote either.
Well, true, but they were just started as a consulting business in July for an election they were paid for in November. Like, a lot of money too. It's very suspicious.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's sketchy out there. I don't think a lot of people look. That's sort of the moral of this entire show is you have to look, and you have to look at what people are doing and really put on your. It's all here. You just got to put on your detective hat and just go down the rabbit hole.
And a lot of the shady things that we've uncovered about these candidates, they were like different shady things. So like, this candidate is doing this shady thing. This candidate is doing other shady things. This candidate is doing other shady things that were found kind of in all of the different ways put together. So they're not all shady in the same way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, some of them were.
Well, yes.
Some of them did all the things.
It's true.
And
some of them, you think there might be a school where they all went and learned how to do all the shady things.
They have the same book or something.
And they usually, like birds of a feather, you flock together, and it's no coincidence that all of these shady candidates, at one point or another, were friends with each other and connected with each other and did events together, and it's like, we see you.
And then all of a sudden,
go ahead.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, once one of them gets called out, the other candidates are like, "Oh, I don't know. I just did. I don't know. I'm not really affiliated with that person anymore." They're really quick to throw each other under the bus too. So
Dirtbags usually are. We found, just to give you guys some some juicy stuff. I'm sure that's why some of you are watching. One candidate, I'm not going to say her name, donated a lot of money to what we looked up and found was a school. And then we were able to find out it's the private school her daughter goes to. So it's like when you're giving money to a candidate, are you thinking that, oh, I want her to win her district? Or are you thinking, oh, here's money I want her to give to her daughter's private school?
Wow.
That's the candidate spent a lot of money on a certain legal firm, a lot of money when they're not even currently a candidate. But
yeah.
One candidate in California, like Southern California, spent money at a smoke shop. We Google mapped it, and it was legit.
He burned his money literally.
it was
like Corinne said, though, don't go looking for problems. Like oftentimes people come to me and they're like, I want you to research this person. And I'm like, well, why? What is your red flag here? You know, you didn't like their clothes, or you saw them lying, or thought that, what are we looking for? Like, that's always a starting point for me, because if we're just looking for problems, then we're just going to create problems.
Or like, I disagree with them, so they must be,
But I mean, if they are on your ballot, you should look into them. You have 4 or 5 options for your congressional seat. You should probably look into all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You don't have to do some hardcore deep dive, but you want to actually choose the candidate that lines up with you best, and you want to know that they're an honest person.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's almost been an hour and a half. It's been definitely a jam-packed info session. This was a great show.
I hope it was helpful. I hope we weren't too all over the place.
I'm going to come back. It's going to take me a few minutes, but I'll gather all these links and add them as a comment to the YouTube channel.
Oh, so great of you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can add all these links to the show notes on audio.
Or
I can add them to
I can send you the ones I have, and then you can add what you have.
Yeah, I can add them to the description of the YouTube video so that everybody can go back and find them and do their own digging and searching and stuff like that. But any final thoughts you guys want to share before we log off for the day and everyone enjoy their Memorial Day weekend?
Vet your candidates.
Yeah, and if you see something, file with who you need to file with. FEC, FPPC. It's FPPC is for California. You'd have to Google your specific state, but you can file, a complaint, and they'll look into it.
Yeah. So if you do see shady stuff, you do have that availability to call them out or make a report about it, and that's the point of these organizations. Hopefully, they actually do their job and follow through on a lot of that stuff. But
hold them accountable. And I'm sorry, real quick, I'm just going to add, if someone promises you something that they don't actually have the authority to do in office, like, that's not necessarily a red flag, but you're like, stay in your lane. If I elect you, you're not going to do that because you don't have any authority to do that. So be careful of that too.
Yeah, governors can't unilaterally lower taxes. I'll just go with that. That has to be passed through the legislature. So any governor who says I'm going to single-handedly lower taxes, be careful of them. But all right, thanks guys for hopping on, my fellow content predators. Glad we finally got this out right before the primaries. If you guys like this show, make sure you share it with everybody. Always text somebody. And the audio version will be out soon. And that's it. Everyone have a great Memorial Day weekend. We'll talk with you later. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phil.
Bye.